Good day to all of you. So we're already on our new lesson, which is all about occupational diseases. So by the term itself, these are diseases that you can acquire at work. So to know more about these occupational diseases, so let's start our lesson. So again, our topic for Plant Safety Network is all about occupational diseases. So for the historical outline of occupational diseases, so descriptions of pain and injuries of the spine in pyramid builders are found in Egyptian papyruses. So Hippocrates, in his treatise Airs, Waters, and Places, describes symptoms that occurred in workers extracting non-ferrous metal ores. So the first observations of diseases in miners were described by Agricola and Paracelsus. And then Bernardino Ramazzini, a professor of medicine at Modena and Padua, pioneered scientific research in the areas of occupational hygiene and medicine. The first institutions dealing with the protection of workers' health were established at the turn of the 20th century. So in 1898, Great Britain appointed the first medical factory inspector, Thomas Morrison Legge. In the 1920s, the first lists of occupational disease were developed, making it possible for workers to obtain compensation for work-related health impairment. This process was preceded by the establishment of the International Labour Organization or ILO Convention in 1925, which included the first list of occupational diseases and toxic substances and the types of industry and manufacturing processes that could give rise to occupational diseases. So, as a very long time that occupational diseases already exist, as you have read all about the pyramid builders in the Egyptian papyruses. So up until in 1920s, until ILO has their own convention in 1925. So next is we have identification of an occupational disease and a rationale for diagnosis. So, occupational disease is a medical legal term. In order to label a disease occupational, the causal relationship of the disease with work condition must be established and the disease must be included in the list of occupational diseases. So, it means for occupational diseases to be classified as such, so the disease should be it should be the causal relationship of the disease with the work conditions, and at the same time that disease must be included in the list of occupational diseases. There are two conditions for it to be included or to be classified the disease as occupational disease. And then according to ILO Convention number 121 of 1964, each country may employ any of the following procedures to regulate issues connected with occupational diseases. First is a procedure involving a list of diseases, including at least the diseases enumerated in Schedule 1 of the Convention, a general procedure involving a broad definition of occupational diseases, and a mixed procedure that is a combination of the two above mentioned methods. So, occupational diseases must be diagnosed based on definite criteria that consider many factors in order to justify the causal relationship between the disease and the occupational exposure, so the work conditions. So, the most important criteria are as follows. Symptoms must correspond to the clinical presentation of the disease in question, and then the occupational exposure level must be high enough. So, when assessing occupational exposure to diagnose an occupational disease, a number of aspects should be considered. First is the chemical and physical factors, the biological factors, the sensitizing factors or allergens, and the manner in which the work is performed. And then, regardless of the principal method for assessing occupational exposure, there are situations with which such methods might not be sufficient. So, in such instances, the biological monitoring process can be used. So, which involves the measuring the concentration of toxic substances or their metabolites in the blood or urine. So, that is called the biological monitoring. And then for toxic substances, reference values in non-exposed people and biological exposure indexes that are considered safe are determined. And then next is when diagnosing a disease, The evaluating doctor should always obtain the necessary data on the worker's level of exposure and his or her medical history from the employer and or the organization's preventive health care doctor. So next is we have work-related diseases. So they are defined as diseases of a multifactorial etiology. Etiology means the cause. So in which work conditions are one of several risk factors that affect the manifestation or aggravation of the disease. So the importance of work-related diseases was recently highlighted as more significant than classic occupational diseases. So, a group of experts from the World Health Organization or WHO in Geneva prepared a detailed report in 1985 on the problem of work-related diseases. The recommendations of the report, including proposals for dealing with diseases considered work-related, remain a live issue even today. So next is we have the behavioral responses and psychosomatic illnesses. So the risk factors for psychosomatic diseases that are mentioned in the report include work overload, so monotonous work, shift work, migration or working abroad, and performing a managerial role in an organization. So meaning psychosomatic, the term means combination, psyche means mind, and then soma means body. So it means that illnesses that has something that is related to the mind. So that's why work overload, monotonous work, shift work, migration, and performing a managerial role. As you can see, the common factor here is stress. So sometimes the illnesses appear it's not because there is an underlying condition, but because of stress. So different types of mental disorders may lead to depressive reactions, hypertension, and peptic ulcer disease. So increased job-related tension and anxiety encourage smoking and alcoholism. So for psychosomatic illnesses, so that's why we have this positive psychology. Then we should also have a positive mind. We should not be stressed. So that are those are the ways on how to avoid psychosomatic illnesses. For example, yoga, exercise. So that's why, actually, again, as much as I want to show you the video, so watch the video for psychosomatic illnesses to further understand. So sometimes, for example, you have a reaction, a body reaction, but actually it is because of your stress. So that's why there's always a saying that it's all in the mind. Okay, next is we have hypertension. So here in the Philippines, sometimes you're going to hear that, oh, you have a high blood pressure to be exact. But of course, here we're using, if it's high blood, so we're always pertaining with hypertension. So again, there are many videos that you can watch that can explain what happens when there is a high blood pressure that is happening, or what happens if there is hypertension. So additional video, so you can watch it in the separate um, slideshow presentation for this. So next is we have this ischemic heart disease. So ischemic heart disease, or the coronary heart disease, or the CHD. So it is narrowing of coronary artery. These are the blood vessels that supplies blood and oxygen to the heart. So, of course, ischemic heart disease, of course, it's fatal. So, again, there are videos that explains what happens if you have or a disease of ischemic heart disease, or another term is the coronary heart disease. So, next is we have the chronic non-specific respiratory diseases. So, again, one of this is the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So, it's umbrella term for chronic bronchitis, asthma, and emphysema. So again, there are videos that further explains what is this chronic non-specific respiratory diseases, or to be exact, the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And then next is we have the locomotor disorder. So we have video here, of course, such as for we have the repetitive strain injury or the repetitive strain disorder. So, and then we also have neck and shoulder pain. So, what are the solutions to at least, it's not to prevent, but of course, especially in the offices, we are sitting a whole day and we do not change our posture or our position. So, we tend to have this back pains, neck and shoulder pain. So, the solution for that is stretching and also massage. Okay? Then next is we have prevention of occupational diseases. So the WHO, highlighting the need to protect the health of working people, described its aim as achieving a state in which the level of general morbidity of different occupational groups will not exceed the level of morbidity of the general population. So there are three types of prevention. We have first the primary prevention or technical prevention. It aims to ensure safe work conditions and is the task of engineers and technicians. So how safe are the tools and equipment that is to be used in the workplace? Next is we have the organizational prevention. So in high risk conditions and rotating jobs can reduce health risk by shortening working time and lengthening total employment time. And then last but not the least is we have the medical prevention. So it involves a broadly understood protection of the worker's health at the workplace. So in order to prevent occupational diseases, it is very important that the employer inform employees about the conditions in the work environment, the potential effects of exposure to these conditions, and the ergonomic principles of safe work. So that's why there is an orientation. So employers must be honest what will be the working conditions. And of course, if the working condition is harsh, they should provide a protective, personal protective equipment or PPE for the employees to wear. And then an employee should know what his or her workstation should look like so that he or she can ask for modifications from the employer. And then worker training should also be conducted in the form of lectures and practical training at workstations, of course. If your job, for example, is skill related, so you should have proper training, specifically if the machines that you're going to use um, are of course are not safe or though there are machine guards, but then again you should have proper training to avoid unsafe acts. So this is all about the occupational diseases. So I hope that you've learned something. So again, so I hope that aside from this lesson, you've watched supplemental videos to have a further understanding of the different diseases. Of course, we're not in a medical term. So for us to supplement the knowledge about, for example, the coronary heart disease, the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, hypertension, it is advisable, of course, that you have to watch supplemental videos for further understanding. Of course, we're not doctors, we're not nurses, but at least we are equipped with basic knowledge of these occupational diseases. So I hope that, again, this presentation will be useful. So if you do have any questions, so please feel free to comment below, and please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. So thank you very much. Good day and stay safe.